I'm just your average, snack-loving, adventure-chasing golden dog. And guess what? My best friend Dad and I go on the coolest adventures. We've got a big black Jeep named Birdie, a whole world to explore, and, of course, plenty of snacks. Every week is a brand new tail-wagging adventure. You never know what we'll find. Hidden carrots, new friends, maybe even buried treasure. So grab your hat, pack your snacks, and come with us.
Harley and Dad's epic Canadian tour, Prince Edward Island. Oliver's tires hummed as he climbed onto the Confederation Bridge. Water sparkled on both sides, gulls wheeled in the sky, and the bridge stretched so far it looked like it reached into the clouds. Harley pressed his nose to the glass, eyes huge. "Dad, we're driving on a road that forgot to stop." Dad chuckled. "It sure feels that way. This bridge opened in 1997. It took more than 4 years and 5,000 workers to build it. Almost 13 kilometers long, the longest bridge in the world over ice-covered water." Harley's tail wagged nervously. 13 kilometers. That's at least a bazillion paws. What if it breaks while we're on it? Dad tipped his hat. "Don't worry, pup. It's solid as can be. And on the other side, Prince Edward Island." Oliver rumbled down the far slope, rolling onto the island's red soil. The air smelt salty and fresh, with a hint of farmland. They parked at a seaside campground, waves whispering nearby. Dad stretched, then pointed to a rack of shiny rentals under a wooden sign. "PEI is Canada's smallest province," he explained. "It's just right for exploring by bike." Harley froze. "Bike? Dad, I can't ride a bike. My paws don't even reach the pedals." Dad grinned and walked him over to a special setup, a sturdy e-bike with a sidecar. The little cart was padded, with room for Harley to sit, tall and proud. "You won't be pedaling," Dad said. "You'll ride beside me, wind in your ears, nose in the breeze." Harley eyed the sidecar suspiciously. "So I just sit there? No balancing? No falling?" "Exactly," Dad said. "Just snacks and scenery." Harley's tail thumped. "Oh, well, in that case, maybe I am a bike dog." That night, as Oliver glowed warm against the dark shore, Harley curled into his bed, dreaming of zooming down red roads with his ears flying like flags, and Dad pedaling happily beside him. The next morning, the e-bike hummed as it rolled along the coastal road, Dad pedaling steadily, Harley sitting proudly in his sidecar. His ears did flap like little flags in the sea breeze, and his grin could be seen for miles. This was fantastic! When they reached the Cavendish Beach, the world opened into wide stretches of soft red sand, dunes dotted with green grass, and waves rolling with a hiss and a sparkle. Harley gasped. "Dad, the ground is blushing." Dad chuckled. "That's the iron in the sandstone. It gives PEI's beaches their famous red color." He pointed toward a sign, "Sandcastle Contest Today." Families with buckets and shovels were already hard at work, towers rising in the sun. Harley's tail thumped. "Dad, we have to enter. You dig, I dig, and together we'll win the Golden Bone Trophy." "There's no trophy," Dad said, smiling, "but there are ribbons. Let's give it a try." They picked a spot near the shoreline. Dad scooped sand with a bucket, packing towers. Harley dug furiously, spraying sand everywhere. A boy nearby laughed when a puff of sand landed on his towel. "That dog's fast." Soon their creation took shape, a mighty bone-shaped fortress, complete with moat and carrot-stick towers. Dad smoothed the walls while Harley pawed tunnels through the sides, tail wagging like a metronome. All around them, other competitors built tall turrets, seashell-decorated castles, and even a dragon-shaped fortress. Judges with clipboards walked from team to team, nodding and jotting notes. When they stopped at Harley and Dad's castle, the pair sat proudly by their sandy masterpiece. Harley added the finishing touch, a stick perched like a flag on top. Later, the crowd gathered as ribbons were handed out. Harley didn't win first place, but his ears perked high when Dad pinned a Most Creative Castle ribbon to his blue collar. "Dad," he barked, "this is even better than the Golden Bone trophy." Dad ruffled his fur. "Told you, pup, teamwork pays off." Harley puffed his chest out, ribbon gleaming in the sun, ready for the next stop on their island adventure. The e-bike hummed along the rolling red roads until the white farmhouse with its famous green trim came into view. Dad parked near the gate, and Harley hopped from his sidecar, sniffing the air. "Dad," Harley whispered, eyes wide, "this house smells like stories." Dad smiled. "It should. This is Green Gables Heritage Place. Over 100 years ago, an author named Lucy Maud Montgomery wrote Anne of Green Gables. It's one of the most beloved books in the world." They wandered up the path toward the cozy farmhouse. Dad continued, "The story is about a redhead orphan named Anne Shirley. She came here to live, and she turned ordinary fields into enchanted meadows, ponds into shining lakes, and every day into adventure with her imagination." Harley's ears perked. "She sounds amazing. But wait." He paused at the porch steps, looking concerned. "Did Anne have a dog?" Dad chuckled. "No, she didn't. She had friends, neighbors, and lots of adventures, but no dog." Harley tilted his head, puzzled. "Well, who got snacks off her counter without asking then? Or chased squirrels around her yard? Who curled up at her feet during story time?" Dad smiled warmly. "Maybe she didn't need a dog to imagine all of that. But if she had met you, Harley, I think you would have been her best friend." Harley puffed proudly. "Anne and Harley of Green Gables. Now that's a story." Together they stepped inside. Harley flopped dramatically onto the parlor rug, paw to his forehead like a stage actor. Dad laughed softly, remembering his own childhood reading Anne's adventures, and thought of how perfect it was to share the place now with Harley. The e-bike carried them south along the island's winding coast until a tall striped tower rose into view, West Point Lighthouse. Black and white bands circled it like pajamas, standing proudly at the water's edge. Harley's tail wagged. "Dad, that tower looks ready for bed. Is it wearing PJs?" Dad laughed. "That's the lighthouse, pup. It's been guiding sailors since 1875, and tonight it's guiding us too. We're spending the night here." Harley's eyes went round. "We're sleeping in a lighthouse? Best hotel ever!" Inside, the lighthouse was warm and cozy, its tall windows glowing as the sun set. Chairs had been set in a circle, and a small crowd gathered. A storyteller began to speak, voice rising and falling like the waves outside. He told of ships caught in storms long ago, of brave captains and anxious passengers, of lanterns swinging high in the lighthouse tower, calling sailors home. And always, always, the stories ended with every soul safely rescued. Harley leaned forward, ears perked, imagining the spray of the waves and the shine of the beacon cutting through the night. When the stories finished, The group gathered for a meal of island seafood. Plates of mussels, lobster rolls, and fresh oysters were passed around. Dad slid an oyster toward Harley. Want to try? Harley sniffed it. It was shiny, wobbly, and smelled like the ocean. He nudged it suspiciously with his nose. Don't worry, Dad whispered. Just a little taste. Harley closed his eyes, stuck out his tongue, and gave the oyster the tiniest lick. He froze. His tail wagged once. Then he sneezed. Achoo! The oyster flipped off the plate and landed safely back in its shell. The whole room laughed gently, and Harley wagged sheepishly. Maybe I'll stick to carrots. That night, as the storyteller's voice lingered in his mind, and the lighthouse beam swept across the dark sea, Harley curled up on his bed beside Dad. The sound of waves against the shore was like a lullaby. Dad, Harley murmured drowsily, I'm glad lighthouses don't just wear pajamas. They keep everyone safe, too. Dad touched the brim of his hat. That's right, pup. And together they drifted off to sleep in the lighthouse, its steady light watching over them and the sea beyond. The morning sun lit up red roads as the e-bike hummed toward O'Leary, home of the Canadian Potato Museum. A giant baked potato statue greeted them at the entrance. Harley's jaw dropped. Dad, that potato is bigger than Oliver. Dad laughed like a boy on Christmas morning. This pup is what I've been waiting for. His eyes twinkled as they walked inside. The museum was packed with displays. Old farm tools, burlap sacks, and shiny antique tractors lined in rows. Dad touched each one with reverence, like a gardener meeting heroes. Potatoes have been grown here for over 200 years, he said eagerly. PEI is Canada's potato powerhouse. The soil, the climate, it's perfect. Look at these tractors. Imagine the harvests. Harley blinked. He liked fries and mashed potatoes just fine, but Dad was practically glowing. He padded along faithfully, ears tilting as Dad gushed over machinery. Dad, Harley whispered, I didn't know tractors could make you this happy. Dad chuckled, running a hand over a bright red wheel. It's the story of how food is grown, pup, from soil to table. Potatoes feed the world, and gardeners love that. Harley wagged slowly, understanding a little better. So, potatoes are kind of like snacks for everyone. Exactly, Dad said. In the gift shop, Harley's eyes landed on a soft orange plush fox with bright eyes. His tail thumped. Dad picked it up. That's a red fox, the provincial animal of PEI. Looks like you found your new friend. Harley hugged it close. Fiddler the Fox, he declared, tucking the plushie under his chin. Dad, meanwhile, spotted a round, smiling plush potato. He grinned as he tucked it under his arm. Meet Edward, he said, a fine spud if I've ever seen one. Harley blinked. Dad, you got a potato plushie? Dad laughed. Best souvenir I could ask for. As they loaded the bike for the ride back to Oliver, Harley sat proudly with Fiddler in the sidecar. Dad balanced Edward carefully in a basket, and together they looked like the happiest pair of gardeners and explorers PEI had ever seen. That night, tucked safely into Oliver, Harley curled against his plushy family. Fiddler nestled close at his side, and Edward was perched beside Dad's pillow. Dad, Harley murmured sleepily, potatoes, foxes, and lighthouses in pajamas. PEI has it all. Dad chuckled softly. It sure does, pup. The lighthouse beam swept faintly in the distance, and Oliver hummed gently as they both drifted into dreams of red shores, tractors, and adventures yet to come. Morning light shimmered on the water as Oliver rolled into Wood Island's harbor. Ahead, a huge blue and white ship waited, its open mouth wide enough for cars, trucks, and even RVs. Harley's jaw dropped. "Dad, that boat is eating cars. Oliver, watch out!" Dad chuckled, steering carefully up the ramp. "It's not eating us, pup. It's carrying us. This is the ferry to Nova Scotia. The trip's going to take about 75 minutes. Oliver rumbled inside and parked among rows of vehicles. The deck above bustled with people heading for the open air. Harley's nose twitched with the smell of salt, seaweed, and seagulls. His tail wagged like a flag in the breeze. On deck, Harley leaned against the railing. Waves splashed against the hull, gulls swooped, and the horizon stretched wide. "Dad," he said, "we're driving on the ocean. This is the best trick Oliver's ever done." Dad smiled, tipping his hat against the wind. "This ferry's been running since 1941. It connects Prince Edward Island to Nova Scotia across the Northumberland Strait." Harley squinted thoughtfully. "So Oliver's a ship now. Captain Oliver at your service." He sat tall, ears flapping, pretending to bark orders at the waves. The engines rumbled as the ferry glided forward. The lighthouse at Wood Island grew smaller, and the red shores of PEI slipped into the distance. Ahead, new land slowly rose from the misty horizon. "Dad," Harley whispered, eyes shining, "we're sailing into a whole new adventure." Dad nodded. Next stop, Nova Scotia. The gulls cried overhead as the ferry carried them forward. Oliver safe in the hold, Harley's ears whipping in the salty wind, and the promise of another adventure waiting just across the water. Best day ever.
What a great day that turned out to be! Best day ever. I can't wait until next week when we go on another adventure. Make sure you click subscribe so you can join me, and like my video too, please, because I sure like you. See you next week, friends.